So just in time for Valentine's Day, I want to do a recommends video of romance novels. It's not my go-to genre, but I've come across a lot of really good books and I want to recommend you some of my favorites from the genre. These aren't necessarily 5-star reads for me, but I still really enjoyed them and I think you might too. Now the first book I want to recommend is for anyone like myself who loves watching romantic comedies. They can be predictable and cheesy, but there's something about them that's just so comforting and fun. And so particularly this book is great for anyone who loves the rom-coms that came out in the 1990s. And the book I want to recommend is Attachements by Rowell. It's not actually my favorite of her books, but when it comes to like a Valentine's Day themed romance, I really think this one is the cute, fun story. It's very lighthearted, very much on the side of chick lit, and is essentially about two women who work in an office place and are exchanging emails back and forth throughout the workday that aren't necessarily about work. And their IT guy, his job is basically to screen for emails that are inappropriate for work. But rather than reporting these two women, he ends up reading their emails and essentially falls in love with one of them. Of course, there's the complications of how to introduce yourself and ask someone out when you don't actually know them in real life, but you've just happened to be creeping on their emails. So it creates a great dynamic. It really felt like a rom-com. I didn't think it was perfect, but it was just that lighthearted romance story, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy it if you haven't already read it. Now, changing it up for something a little bit deeper, the next book I want to recommend is Redeeming Love by Francine. This is a historical fiction Christian romance that is set in the pioneer days in the United States. There is a young woman who has grown up in prostitution, and then a man basically hears the call from God to take her and make her his wife. And it's definitely got Christian overtones. There's a lot of talk of God's will, but even if you're not a hardcore Christian reader, because I'm not, I've said it so many times before, I don't read Christian romance, but I really enjoyed this book. I feel like it's such a beautiful, deep love story, particularly for people who are married themselves and have that Christian background, that I think it really talks about what it's like to make a commitment to someone and what that really represents, looking through the good, the bad, and just sticking it out for the long haul. I just really adored this book. I flew through it, and it's just such a comforting story about mature, deep love. I just thought it was wonderful. Now, even though everyone has already read this book, I couldn't make this list without mentioning one of my favorite romance stories, and that is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Of course, about a teenager who has terminal cancer and meets a boy. I don't love a lot of YA romance just because I feel so far removed from it. That feeling of kind of first love and high school romance is so far removed from my experience as a married 20-something, but I just adore this one. It's sad because cancer, but it's a beautiful story. Really, I feel like it is a deep romance for being YA, and it's just one I'll read over and over again because I don't know, I love Hazel, Grace, and Augustus Waters. They're just so perfect. So even though you probably already read it, if you want to reread something this February, this is a great one to go with. Now for something a little bit steamier, I want to recommend Wallbanger by Clayton. This is a contemporary romance about a girl who's just moved into a new apartment. She's recently had some guy trouble and has basically lost her orgasm, and is trying to go and have a full life. She has a great job, she loves to bake, she has great friends, and I really like that she's a strong, independent character. But when she moves into this new apartment, she discovers that her neighbor is so loud and she keeps getting woken up by him banging the wall with other girls, and I just love how funny this book is. It's very tongue-in-cheek. The dialogue is fantastic. It's definitely one of my favorite steamier romance stories. It's got a lot of fun banter, and I've heard it be said that, and it's true, that it basically makes baking sexy. So I think it's a lot of fun and definitely recommend it if you want something more lighthearted. This is a great one to pick up. Now finally, no recommendations video for romance would be complete without some Nicholas Sparks. Now I've watched most of his movies and have read about 3 of his books, but personally my favorite has to be Safe Haven, which is all about a young woman who is escaping an abusive relationship with her husband and ends up going to this small sleepy beach town where of course she meets this gorgeous widowed man who has 2 children, and from there's some romantic connections but definitely built in some complications. The reason this is my favorite Nicholas Sparks book is that there's an actual villain in the book and there's a lot of suspense. I feel like in a lot of his other books, the villain of the story is like time and circumstances and just missing your moment. But in this one, there's some tension, there's some action, and I just thought it was really enjoyable. Definitely one I will reread. Yeah, really good story. I like the book a little bit more than the movie, but overall just think it's really well done and definitely recommend it if you're looking for sparks with a little bit more edge. I feel like this is a good one to go with. So those are all my recommendations for romance novels. Please let me know down below what is your favorite romance novel. I haven't read a lot of the genre, so I'm definitely up for recommendations from you. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon. Okay, bye.